Welcome to Sanford on Security, where each episode, American Security Council Foundation senior analyst Laurence Sanford brings you the latest in national security news and events.
Good day. I'm Laurence Sanford, senior analyst with the American Security Council Foundation. Our mission is to educate and engage Americans on issues of national security, economic security, and moral leadership. Our motto is peace through strength. And I'm delighted to have with me today Ms. Joy Vatrubek. She is the Director of Operations at the American Security Council Foundation. And we're going to discuss quid pro quo with China. And welcome, Joy. I'm glad you're with me.
Thank you, Larry. It's good to be here. And I'm happy to be on Sanford on Security, as I call these little SOS briefs. I'm anxious to hear about China and the quid pro quo.
Okay. It's a fancy Latin phrase for reciprocity.
It's the one, if I say too fast, I'm going to mess it up, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a tongue twister. It's a fancy Latin phrase for reciprocity. And the thrust of the article is that China is playing us like a fiddle while we're burning. They pull all sorts of stuff on America, and we just sit around like goops, letting them get away with it. And I discussed earlier in one of my papers, TikTok. TikTok is running amok in America, and China will not allow us to have Facebook or Google operate in China. Seems to me a pretty simple quid pro quo, something for something. And China's getting all the something and we're getting nothing. So if they will not allow us to operate Facebook and Google in China, what do you think we should do? My answer is reciprocity. Kick them out of America until they agree to allow us to operate there. Manufacturing, they have been stealing our technologies. They have been stealing our patents. They have been stealing our know-how. And what are we doing about it? Are we reciprocating by clamping down on their theft of the computers? They have cracked into our internet systems and gained millions of names of personnel. The technology, if you look at a lot of the Chinese military hardware, it's a spitting image of American hardware. And why is that? Because basically they've stolen the plans, the engineering, and everything else, and we're doing nothing about it. The opiate drugs, reciprocity. 100,000 Americans approximately died from drug overdose last year, of which the vast majority was fentanyl. And where is fentanyl coming from? Fentanyl raw materials are coming from China via Mexico, via the cartels and their distribution channels into the United States. And what is the reciprocity of America doing to China in regards to drugs? Nothing. China and the cartels are reaping billions of dollars a year in profits. And we are losing our youth. We're disrupting our social culture. And the Chinese just walk away with our money and are weakening the American systems. And I don't understand why we don't come down real hard on border enforcement and drug enforcement here in the United States. Many Chinese students, for example, there's hundreds of thousands of Chinese students here in America, and very few American students in China. They present all sorts of obstacles for Americans going to China. And many of the Chinese students are graduate students in engineering schools, taking away slots from Americans because they pay cash and Americans can't afford the $80,000 or $90,000 a year. We should have a quid pro quo policy, reciprocity, that if there's 10,000 students in China, Americans, then the max that the Chinese can have here in America is 10,000. These students, many of them are graduate students who've already got graduate degrees in China in the fields that they come to America for. They come here basically to steal the advanced thinking in our universities. And the universities are culpable to this whole culture of weakening America because of the money. They get millions of dollars a year from the Chinese students. There's millions of dollars a year they used to get from the Confucius Institute, which I will be addressing in another paper. And the university systems are okay with depriving Americans of education so that they can make the money from the Chinese students. So when I say quid pro quo, if the Chinese operate here in America like police stations, we shut them down. Do you hear of any American police stations in China?
No.
The number of consulates in China by Americans are small, tightly controlled, and very limited in what they can do. Chinese consulates here in America are running amok, and they can do pretty much what we want. If Americans are restricted in China, we should restrict the Chinese in America the exact same way. And that's what I mean by reciprocity. Whatever they do to hurt us and they won't allow us to do it in China, then we should institute policies of curtailing their activities here in the United States. And
that's maddening, Larry, there, especially about the police stations in our own country being manned by the Chinese. And I think in your paper you were talking about them primarily looking at their own people.
They do that. And there's a lot of Chinese who have fled Chinese oppression, the communist oppression. So these police stations are out here threatening them, trying to get them back into China so that they can put them in jail. And they're basically a surveillance spy operation on Chinese Americans living in America. They're not here to do any help for our republic. They're out here to hurt us. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know we discussed the TikTok issue earlier on one of the SOS briefs. And the other thing I find, I just heard on the radio this morning talking about the fentanyl issue, and that is a real big, widespread problem.
Yeah. Another issue I would just like to add is on land. It is illegal for Americans to buy land in China. Chinese generals are buying land, and Chinese corporations are buying land, farmland all over America, millions and millions of dollars worth of land. And interestingly enough, some of this farmland that they buy is right next to Air Force bases. And the most recent one is up there in the Dakotas, where our drone program is headquartered. And the Chinese are going to build a big factory within eye distance of this so they can eavesdrop on all the communications. In Texas, near a huge Air Force base, there's a Chinese general who bought 200 square miles of land near an American air base to develop wind power. Right. That part of Texas is very low on wind, and he's going to have 200 miles of land in which to eavesdrop on American bases. The whole thing, we should not allow any Chinese company to buy anything here in America that we cannot do in China.
Especially near our security. That's very frustrating and scary.
Yes.
And I think this is, if I'm not wrong on that, that this has been going on for quite some time. I heard of the Chinese buying up property in America for several years ago.
I never had a problem with condominiums. I don't care about condominiums, but I care a lot about Chinese buying land near Air Force bases.
I do too.
So, quid pro quo, reciprocity. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Do unto others, and the old Bible saying, do unto others as you want to be treated. And that sure is not happening with the Chinese treatment of America.
No, it's not. And it's scary for us. And I was just talking about the fentanyl issue and how this last Halloween, we were all concerned with our kids going out to get candy because they talked about just a little bit could be on the candy and they pick it up.
Yep, and they die.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your very informative paper.
And thank you for joining with me.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us on SOS Brief. And you can subscribe to our channels, both Rumble and YouTube, by typing in American Security Council Foundation. Also join us on Facebook. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Larry.
If you would like to support the American Security Council Foundation, please visit www.ascf.us. Thanks so much and have a great day.